Information and Communications Technology panel come to the dais, and we will get their cards available as well. We'll dismiss. Rafat, thank you so much. And ICT people, where are you? Bob Kinn from DOD, the Office of the Secretary of Defense, is going to be our distinguished moderator, longtime contributor to AACC. The Afghan Wireless and Communications Company, Alberto Lopez, is going to be speaking on their behalf, on Isam Bayat's behalf. And Kathleen McGowan from USAID, who is a trooper, a true believer in the future of Afghanistan, and speaks on behalf of also, in addition to her technical capability, speaks brilliantly on behalf of the role of Afghan women in the future of the economy. 50% of the population engaged in appropriate commercial activity makes a tremendous difference for those economic growth numbers. And Rajendra Singh, whom I met at the ICT conference in Kabul in late September, gave a brilliant performance on what Afghanistan's regulatory apparatus needs to do to succeed in this high growth area. ICT, talk about regional leadership, ICT, information and communications technology. Afghanistan has leapfrogged to its present state, and of course, all the young people that come out of college and university and technical schools are a secret weapon for the Afghan economy in the future. So, and then Shafi Ghafoor, most of you know Rana, has been one of the lead, if not the leading, internet service provider and innovator since we and Rana go back to 2003. So we've got a great panel here. Robert Kinn, representing the Secretary of Defense's Office on Information and Communications Technology, will take over as our moderator. Bob, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Don. Don, I know that we are running late, and so we're going to make our best effort to try to push on this panel, and please don't misinterpret when I give a 2-minute warning to each of our speakers. It's not to be rude, it's just to keep the pace of it going. Could we pull up the first slide in the first deck there? Thanks so much. As per that bottom line, I'm here to give you the DoD CIO perspective. But first I must say salam, tashakur, manana, thank you so much to all our Afghan friends. And I've seen many of you last night at the opening reception and in the course of this morning. We greatly appreciate the effort you made for making the trip over. And we look forward to the continued work with you, which in the case for DoD CIO goes back to 2004. So thank you so much. So next slide. This is and I'm going to dwell on a few of these slides and walk very quickly through others in the interest of time. And following this later in the day and through the course of the next 2 days, we'll be available to talk at leisure about particular points you may have interest in. So we, of course, report in as CIO within the Office of the Secretary of Defense to the Secretary and the Deputy Secretary. We have primary responsibility for the department to engage on all matters related to ICT for DoD, be it global, regional, or on a country-specific basis, such as Afghanistan. In the case of Afghanistan and others, we work quite closely with DISA, Defense Information Services Agency, which in the case of Afghanistan has the primary day-to-day operational responsibility for activities of the organization, which you can't see too well in the bottom there, called Telecom Advisory Team, based over in Afghanistan. We have had telecom advisors on the ground in country since 2005 for several years at the embassy, for the last 3+ years based at ISAF, and we are now working on opportunities to see what can be done across the civil and the mil space for continued advisory capability in the post-2014 environment. And as you can see in the red, while we also deal across interagency, we also deal with non-USG institutions, be it the bank, the ITU, associations obviously such as AACC and others, and NGOs, and I'll ask for the next slide. So again, global and regional country engagement. The middle bullet on focus on the civil element of the sector is one I really want to bring your attention to. The commercial players, this is one of the most successful sectors in the country. Thank you. We're also thankful for that. And our GSM and ISP and other companies really don't very much need telecom advisory support from Western US and others. They're moving along quite well, thank you very much. So, but we do see need to focus in on what we are doing with the government of Afghanistan and the civil side, with the Ministry of Communications, with Afghan Telecom, with ATRA, and other bodies. And I've focused on the civil national networks, the first generation of which were primarily satellite-based, the Government Communications Network, and its terrestrial last mile WiMAX connections to the 34 provincial capitals through the Provincial Governors Communications Network, the District Communications Network, and the Village Communications Network. And these are civil networks developed by the government of Afghanistan for civil use. Now the second, the broadband fiber, it is also a national civil network, but it is also for commercial use beyond civil use, as many of you, I think, are aware. You get the next slide? And I'll tell you what, we'll just pass this one. It's just a graphic representation of the points I've hit. Next, please. So who do we work with? We work with state on global issues having to do with ICT, elevation of ICT to essential service and critical infrastructure status, with the EBCIP office. We work with the South Central Asia office and SRAP on New Silk Road activities. At USAID, we work with Kay and other colleagues at the Office of AFPAC Affairs on e-transactions and other issues. At Commerce, our colleagues at ITA and CLDP across cyber and legal regulatory issues. Our colleagues at the bank on capacity development and fiber issues. And of course, here with the AACC, in looking at ICT as a regional commercial hub, and work with the AACC's ICT working group. Next slide. And then here, all I'm doing is bringing a little bit more focus on the network side. With USAID, they are the agency that was responsible for US government to deploy the DCN, the District Communications Network, and I must say to our USAID colleagues, they have done an extraordinary job with that network. It was one of the most difficult deployments in Afghanistan. They were able to bring terminals to 250 of 370 odd district sites, and that was a very impressive work by USAID on that activity. Of course, the bank did the first generation government communications satellite-based network and is working on its own additional fiber segment augments to what is being done by the government of Afghanistan. More on that in a minute. And then we at DoD worked on the WiMAX last mile extension for the GCN network, which we call the Provincial Governors Communications Network. Next slide. This is just a graphic depiction giving you an idea of giving the satellite-based connectivity across the GCN and the DCN, and of course, a quick look at the ring road. It's a bit of an older slide, but it's consolidated on just one slide. Next, please. What are some of the areas of priority that are seen across both the government of Afghanistan and US and other Western folks with interest in the sector? You can see cyber, fiber, spectrum, work on the internet for Jaroa Ministries called DOSNet, e-government with the NPP focus, capacity development across both the government and beyond the government. Kay will be speaking to mobile money issues. And then on the regional partnerships, talk a bit about what's going on in leveraging the fiber of Afghanistan for regional and broader connectivity. Next. Quick shot of some statistics for the commercial sector. As you can see, we've got about 20 plus subscribers at this point. Excuse me. 88% population coverage with about 72 penetration. And jumping down, you'll see that about $2 billion in FDI investment to date, with a competent minister making all the difference in country for the success of the sector, and significant employment with good wage structures. Next slide, please. Just a quick graphic representation of cell coverage. You can see that a year plus ago, you're basically looking at coverage along the ring road, which is not a big surprise with major population centers along the road. And of course, now you're seeing more development beyond the ring road, particularly through the main east-west corridor in the center of the country. Next. With fiber, the deployment, I'll have a graphic up in a moment showing what's going on with that deployment. Issues for fiber, which I think Raj will be addressing, will be how infrastructure sharing has been a role for the engagement for both fiber and roads work between the Ministry of Communications and the Ministry of Public Works. We've had a number of case studies of problems on fiber deployment and road work where we've been able to come up with some infrastructure coordination approaches, which hopefully will be helpful for the future. And then in the northwest quadrant of the country, the Asia Development Bank is working on developing the road there with the opportunity for fiber infrastructure sharing in that area. And again, that'll be on a graphic. And the most important thing is that our colleagues from the World Bank do bring the standing of the bank to Afghanistan in representing global best practices for this infrastructure sharing approach. The regional global issues on the fiber, there are issues tied to how commercial agreements are structured for cross-border and beyond interconnects, particularly how service level agreements appear as addendums to master commercial agreements, which we could talk about more offline, and the nature of the fiber consortia that are main providers running primarily east-west, north of Afghanistan, transcontinental, south of Afghanistan, undersea cables, and what will happen in terms of a north-south connector for those major facilities and the decision-making that these consortia, as primarily private entities, must do through business case analysis and risk assessments. Next, please. And this is a quick graphic just giving you a sense of where Afghanistan fits both within the immediate South Central Asia border countries and broader connectivity to countries in region, and then of course beyond. And this is what I was referencing in terms of primarily east-west lanes for major consortia running on the ocean level on the south and transcontinental on the north. And how do we identify what country, be it Afghanistan, be it Iran, be it Iraq, or others, may be the provider of that hub connectivity on the north-south between these east-west connections. And then just two last slides on the next set. No, it's on the next deck. No, remember it was the separate slide deck. This is by way of transitioning to Raj from the bank. It says fiber. Well, no, it's the one that says fiber. We had it pulled up before we began the panel, but there's apparently an issue with accessing it at the moment. Let me just say that had you seen the graphic, what we're basically showing is that the fiber is laid for most of the country. There are operational issues tied to provision of service in the southeast quadrant that are linked to breaks in fiber, which are a combination of accidental and collateral damage with IEDs. And on the western side, while the fiber is in, there are issues in terms of ability for field teams to go out and activate POPs, points of presence. The only section where there is not, in fact, laid fiber is in the Northwest, where the Asia Development Bank would be developing their road, and then we'll see fiber infrastructure associated with that road development. And right now, there's a bypass route that goes through Turkmenistan, which does enable connectivity for the ring. And then the last slide we had, which unfortunately we don't have here, which what Raj was going to speak to, was specifically showing you what the World Bank is doing. The minister's vision is to develop a basic core set of fiber following Ring Road and a couple of major augment segments from that. And one of those key augment segments is the work that the bank is doing to run centrally through east-west and having spur going south towards Kandahar, and then another set of fiber spurs going up in the northeast towards Faizabad. And with that, I'll hand it over to Raj from the bank, who has been a wonderful colleague to us over the last several years, working on capacity development and fiber issues in Afghanistan, as well as the infrastructure sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Assalamu alaikum to my friends from Afghanistan, and good morning to everyone. Thanks, Don, for giving this opportunity to share my thoughts what World Bank is doing in ICT sector. As you know, World Bank is very active in various sectors, and previous speakers mentioned about MEGA, for example, for insurance guarantee. So I'm not going to cover all the activities which World Bank is doing, but let me just focus. And I'm also not focusing exactly giving you details about like what bank is doing in ICT sector in Afghanistan. I'll just briefly summarize those points. But what I have been asked to speak for about next 5 to 7 minutes, reaching the next stage of telecom achievements in Afghanistan. So I'm going to focus where exactly, whichever sector you are representing, whether you are in construction sector, in mining sector, in transport and logistics, how exactly we collectively we have to think about that how we should develop together ICT sector in Afghanistan. That's going to be the main focus of my presentation. As Bob mentioned, Afghanistan is one of the very few countries in the world who has taken a policy decision. Last year, this decision was taken, and this was taken in a record time, initiating the whole process from scratch and getting the approval from National Economic Council. This was on cross-sector infrastructure sharing. And I'll just briefly mention to you what is the importance of this decision. Let me give you an example. In a typical optical fiber system, when we are constructing optical fiber system, about 70 to 80% of the cost of optical fiber cable is putting this cable under the ground. Think of a situation that if, whether you are constructing new Kabul city or you are constructing new roads, you are already doing the trenching and lot of earthwork in this construction. If at the same time, these agencies can lay the duct, which will be having less than 0.1% of the incremental cost of these construction, then you can save about 50 to 60% cost of optical fiber system. And what kind of implications it will have on growth of ICT, whether it is mobile services, broadband internet. So that is one area. The second point I wanted to mention, you know, when you are doing mining, a lot of operations and energy related issues, you are constructing electricity transmission line, you will be constructing, let's say, railways, oil and gas pipelines. All these systems, they need optical fiber for their own use because they need continuous communication for operation and maintenance of this infrastructure. And this optical fiber system has a lot of surplus capacity. So our second point, Why we are emphasizing on cross-sector infrastructure sharing, that this surplus capacity should be utilized by telecom sector, again, to reduce the cost of connectivity to private sector so that they can come in and offer the services at very affordable prices. Bob mentioned about, and this is one of the largest contribution of private sector in Afghanistan. We are having 4 private mobile operators, and there are a lot of internet service providers. They have provided mobile connectivity to almost 80% of the population of Afghanistan. Now, so far, the focus was on, like, we can call it plain vanilla services, 2G services, but sooner we'll be going to 3G and 4G services. What are the challenges for private sector, apart from this optical fiber connectivity, is going to be the issue of spectrum management. There will be a lot of pressure that how spectrum is going to be allocated to these operators, and therefore, along with ministry and ATRA, which is telecom regulator in Afghanistan, World Bank will be working with them that how do we facilitate the competition in the market, and how do we ensure that these high-speed broadband services using this mobile and other wireless platform can be made available by internet service providers, by mobile operators to the citizens. The other point which is related to, see the question which comes to our mind, that let's say we have this whole connectivity. We have mobile, we have internet services. What do we do with this? So what World Bank is working, in our ICT strategy, we have identified 3 pillars. One is focusing on connectivity, which is this optical fiber, mobile, etc. Another pillar, what we are focusing, is the transformation agenda. How do we use this telecom connectivity to improve science of delivery to the citizens, whichever sector you are working? How do we improve the delivery of services to the citizens? Education, health, transport, etc. The question comes, to improve the transparency and accountability in the whole decision-making process of the government, how do we obtain citizens' feedback about various services which government is claiming that they are offering to their citizens? How do we obtain their feedback by using this platform? The third pillar of this strategy is the innovation agenda. How do we involve the younger generation, especially the students and young entrepreneurs, that they can come out with very innovative ideas using this platform? My 4th point is about the capacity building. See, the question is, ministry and ATRA, we have been working with them. We have done a lot of capacity building work, but there is a lot which is to be done. A lot of capacity building is necessary, and this is where, ultimately their role has to be that they should promote private sector investment, and they should help in growth of telecom services. Finally, whether we are doing with the technical university in Kabul and other departments, we have to develop the capacity and skills in the younger generation so that when they come out of the colleges, they are well prepared to help this sector in growth. Finally, very briefly, I will just mention, Bob has already told you about World Bank contribution, but unfortunately, when telecom infrastructure was completely damaged in the country, World Bank helped government in setting up the connectivity between all provincial headquarters and Kabul by using the satellite communication. We have been working with them almost for last about 7-8 years, helping government and telecom regulator in various capacity building exercises. Now we are funding building up of this optical fiber system. The point I wanted to mention here, again coming back to this connectivity, and Bob briefly mentioned about it. Afghanistan is at a very important strategic location. That is one of the very few countries who are already having connectivity right now with optical fiber to Central Asia, to Middle East, to Iran, to South Asia, and the connectivity to China is almost in the pipeline, and World Bank is funding one optical fiber project, which is in Northeast region, and later on, this may be extended towards China. Therefore, considering this strategic location, considering various projects which are in progress, I think we all should work together to develop ICT sector so that Afghanistan is not only back to the old glories of Silk Route, but they are also on the strategic point for connectivity to the whole world from telecommunication point of view. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Raj. You were right on the mark time-wise. Thanks so much. Kay McGowan is with the Office of AFPAC Affair, also working with the administrator at USAID, also worked in the embassy in Kabul with Ambassador Khalilzad. We had overlap on that with ICT, and is working on efforts to leverage the success of Afghanistan's mobile telephone network for economic and social development goals. Thanks, Kay.
Hi, good morning. It's my pleasure to be here again. I always love being back amongst friends who care very deeply about Afghanistan's future. So this is a perfect opportunity, a perfect segue from what Raj was just talking about the tremendous accomplishments that have already been achieved in terms of connecting Afghans to each other and to the rest of the world. I just noticed that my first slide says 2014, which I think is proof of how forward-thinking I am in terms of this. But I'm delighted to say that there's been some success since I spoke to this group last year and some real progress. I just wanted to say very quickly, you've all lived through Afghanistan's last 12 years or so, and many of you before then. And so you'll probably have the same sort of just sense of awe that I have in terms of the progress that's been made. My very first trip into Afghanistan in 2002, I was working for the State Department then as a Foreign Service officer and was going into the embassy right after it had been reopened. And I was not allowed to take my second bag with me on my military air flight because instead I had to carry a huge duffel bag full of satellite phones for Afghan government officials, actually, to be able to communicate with each other. And now, of course, when you go to Afghanistan, you know, not even in Bamiyan can I escape emails on my BlackBerry, right? And frankly, the 3G connections that you get in Kabul and Herat are faster than my 4G LTE connections here in Washington, D.C. So it really is just a tremendous, tremendous infrastructure that has been built in Afghanistan. And what I'm here to talk to you about is what you can do with that infrastructure beyond sort of traditional voice and texting. In particular, we see mobile financial services as one of the great enablers of both improving service delivery and broad-based economic growth, but also of improving governance and public sector accountability. If you could go to the next slide. One exciting, at least exciting to me, thing that happened this past year was that the Afghan government made a commitment to something called the Better Than Cash Alliance, which was launched about 2 years ago at the United Nations. And it is an alliance that is committing itself to trying to take cash payments and collections out of public sector spending in order to replace them with inclusive electronic payment methods. And the reasons, as are listed here, are, you know, some of them are pretty transaction related, right? It really improves efficiency, it improves operations, it results in cost savings. And of course security, because carrying cash around, in particular in parts of Afghanistan, is very difficult. But it's number 4 and 5, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, because the financial inclusion implications, especially in a place like Afghanistan, where you have such a huge percentage of the population that's unbanked and without access to financial services, that's where you have real potential to really radically change Afghans' trajectory as economic growth continues to improve. And then new market access, which is really sort of, okay, if you have a mobile retail payment system, What does that enable? And I'm actually just back from East Africa, which is probably 4 or 5 years ahead of Afghanistan in this regard. And seeing what's happening there, it just makes me so excited about the potential for similar developments in Afghanistan. Could you go to the next slide, please? So first of all, I'm not going to go too much into what mobile money is. It's basically transferring electronic forms of money around over SMS systems. And Alberto actually runs one of these platforms, so he can talk to you more about the details. But it's just a digital form of the Afghan currency. So it has nothing to do with virtual currencies like Bitcoins and anything like that. The reserve is held one-to-one in a bank. So it's really just looking at access and distribution points and recognizing that traditional brick and mortar retail banking models are extremely expensive and really designed to serve more wealthy clients, which is why in countries that are not economically developed, you have so many people that are really beyond the banking system because the economics behind traditional banking isn't viable. So what this does is really uses mobile phone to change the distribution network for how you get people to be able to access financial services. And that can go starting from just transacting money. So if you're in Kabul and you want to remit part of your salary back to your family in Kapisa province, then instead of having to find a hawala or instead of having to get on a bus and take cash there physically or trust a neighbor that's going in that route to take it for you, you can send it electronically and your mom or dad can then receive the money and turn it into cash as needed at a local shop owner. As I was saying before, there's just a huge gap because we already have between about 80% of Afghans already with access and using mobile phones to a certain extent, and about 90% of them living under the umbrella of the major mobile network operators. You're really talking now about an infrastructure that far surpasses any other infrastructure that's been developed so far, whether it's roads, even television, radio. In fact, USAID released some research earlier this year that showed somewhere between 70 and 80% of Afghan women even have at least occasional access to mobile phones. And so it's a really powerful, powerful medium for reaching people and getting information back from people. Conversely, less than 5% of Afghans have bank accounts. So you can see the gap there in all of the people that are basically stuck in a cash economy. If you can go to the next slide, please. Okay. So we already have now about 3 out of the 4 mobile network operators have actually launched their own services. Roshan was the first to do so with their M-Pesa service a few years ago. Then Etisalat came in with M-Hawala, and Alberto here will talk to you about the newest entrant into the market, which is Afghan Wireless. They have a service called Pulam, or My Money. To be perfectly frank, these systems so far are really failing to gain traction in a significant way, and there's a whole lot of reasons for this. Even though there are large payment streams that are starting to move their direction, we haven't gotten enough momentum yet in terms of investment and entrepreneurship. And, speaking at a very macro level, I'm sure that this affects all of you out here, just that there's a bit of paralysis right now and that people, in the absence of the completion of the security agreement, I think that we're all a little bit frozen. And so I would certainly hope that for the sake of all of our work, but my work also, that we are able to reduce some of the risk of investing in Afghanistan and that this gets concluded as quickly as possible so there's some clarity in the future. I will just close by talking really quickly about the fact that mobile money, mobile financial services, the thing that gets us so excited about them at USAID and World Bank and our friends at DoD is not so much the technology of using the phone, which is cool and seems, very, very sort of forward. But it's really the fact that it's a financing innovation that then enables people to be able to make payments for services in very small amounts. So what I mentioned when I first started speaking, what I just seen in East Africa, where you have mobile money systems that have really started to proliferate, is all of the entrepreneurs that are rushing into this space to say, okay, I couldn't provide my solar kits, my residential solar kits weren't selling when they were $40 or $50 a unit. That was still out of reach to my customer base. But if I can give them this residential unit on a lease to own sort of situation where it's tied to their mobile phone, you start to make the economics work on this. And so, if any of you are interested in these, I've highlighted a few companies and ventures that I think are worth looking about as potential models for what could be done in Afghanistan. There's Mcopa, Mobicel, Econet, just to name 3 of literally dozens of energy solutions that are based on mobile payments. There are community water systems that are now being based on mobile payments so that you actually have a way to collect teeny amounts of revenue so that finally somebody is able to maintain and operate that well that was dug for a donor by a community on a financially sustainable business. And then M-Kesho is just a tremendous success that's really just come about in Kenya in the last 12 months, which, if there are any bankers in the room, this should catch your attention because it's turned the Commercial Bank of Africa. It's taken them from 35,000 clients to 5 million clients in 6 months, just by being able to use mobile payments to offer a savings program or a savings product and small credit to poor people. Anyway, I'm happy to talk to anyone if you have questions. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Alberto to talk a little bit more about the potential of mobile money in Afghanistan.
Thank you, Kay. As always, a very helpful presentation from USAID. Alberto is Director of Business Operations with Telephone Systems International, which is a company with ownership in AWCC, which I'm sure many of you are aware, the oldest GSM operator in country, going back to the Talabera, and has done some very interesting work. The company has done some very good work with developing high-quality microwave backbone capabilities in country, and Alberto has been working on some interesting projects, as you see in the bio, with regards to training center, employee development, linkages with local universities and internships, and obviously there's a segue here topically to the discussion points that Kay was raising. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about using mobility to empower and finance women in Afghanistan, as well as educate them to the process. Some of the topics and initiatives that we have implemented and are planning are items like mobile money, which is called My Money in Afghanistan, phones for maternal health, phones to women, a workforce development and entrepreneurship training program, and some of the achievements that we've accomplished in Afghanistan through mobile money. Some of the services that we've launched on mobile money are cash in and cash out, which is deposit and withdrawal through your mobile phones, money transfer through peer-to-peer, merchant payment, which we've developed several ecosystems within Afghanistan and in certain areas for merchant payment activities, airtime top-up, salary payment via bulk distribution, and bank services with My One Bank, as well as 2 other banks that we're in conversations with and started integration with already. Next slide, please. Phones for maternal health. Here, this service, we would like to help educate women on a weekly basis on the pregnancy and childbirth for Afghan mothers. We would do this through limited access through SMS, text, and IVR voice-based services. Next slide, please. Phones to Women, a workforce development and entrepreneurship training program. This is a micro franchise program where we're trying to help women become educated in entrepreneurship. Afghan Wireless will provide them phones, top-ups, scratch cards, and and minutes so they can sell to families and friends. Then we'll shoot over to the achievements of mobile money. Here in mobile money, we've achieved a lot. We've developed ecosystems within Afghan Wireless as well as the U.S. Embassy, where we have Ariana Cafe and other cafeterias within Afghan Wireless and Ariana Television. Through these cafeterias, we're able to provide mobile wallet solutions where employees can come in and purchase food, drinks, and buy groceries if they need to through mobile money. We've also do salary payments, and we've done salary payments for 2 schools. One is called Aisha and Zargunas Girls School. We've done salary teacher payments for approximately 350 teachers, where our agent will come to the schools at the end of the month and have them cash out their salaries. We've also acquired and attained 22 agents and are quickly expanding the 22 agents in many other districts, such as District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And that is about all I'm going to cover on mobile money. I'll be around in the face-to-face discussions. If anyone has any other detailed questions, I'll be around. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. The work that AWCC has done in the country has been really remarkable over the last better part of 15 years plus. Our next speaker, Shafi Ghafoor, has been a colleague for many years, tied in with AACC, with our ICT working group, and with RANA, which is, of course, one of the leading of the Afghan ISP service providers in country. And Shafi, I'll just let you take it from there.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dostai aziz. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope you're all having a great day. I keep my presentation very short and sweet because my colleagues already spoke about a lot of the achievements which I was going to talk about. I'll be talking about the usage of internet and application at the next level. Application, we're at the very first level. We're ready to work on application learn how to use the applications. I want to start off with some of the success stories which you already heard about. We have 3G services in Afghanistan today, provided by 3 GSM companies. They're doing a great job, like everybody talked about, in expanding it to the most populated areas of the country. The GSM companies are reporting 20 million mobile users and about 67% of mobile internet, which is provided by 3G. That's also a very big news in a very short period of time. World Bank, as you heard, is still continuing to support ICT projects in Afghanistan. Plus the U.S. government it's ongoing. And Rana Technologies was the first ISP company about 3 years ago in Afghanistan to announce a project to penetrate internet to the rural parts of Afghanistan. Our ceremony was inaugurated by His Excellency Minister Sangin, but unfortunately we have been having a little bit difficulties finding the funding for it, which will be a great asset to the overall expansion of internet throughout the entire country. Next slide, please. Some of the opportunities we see is we need to have ISPs to play the same role as they did at the very beginning, where there was no 3G services available. This will help in the penetration of the internet services throughout the country. As my colleague spoke about, throughout the past decade, we have the infrastructure for application usage now. We have fiber optics run in most of the major cities. We have the last mile, which is delivered by WiMAX, as Bob explained. So now the country is ready for application service providers. There are many of those companies here in the US, and we can make partners with those companies to bring this new services to this country and also make it part of the bundled services in this country, which is very new terminology. When you talk about bundled services in Afghanistan, a lot of people don't understand what it means. So this APS, or the application service providers, will do great business in Afghanistan right now. Through applications, Afghanistan needs to do more on e-governance. The ministries, a lot of ministries are still doing business the old way. A lot of paperwork, a lot of dusty file cabinets. We need to come out of that era. We need to move forward. So we have the know-how. We have the infrastructure. So why not do it? So there's a lot of business for e-government, and the U.S. companies can make a lot of profits out of them. Lately, the news is not that great, but I'm very sure it's going to change. It'll be positive. There's going to be a lot of work for the U.S. companies to invest in Afghanistan. That comes with the U.S. government itself that has committed in the past that it will help and support Afghanistan beyond 2014. We have very talented, very energetic, young workforce ready to, people who have not visited Afghanistan, you'll be shocked. We have a very young force, very energetic, very talented, that can do the job for you with very minimal amount of training and capacity building. With that being said, and I think I said this last year also, that Afghanistan is ready for outsourcing on ICT services. I know that a lot of US companies are outsourcing their business in India, Philippines, and in other Asian markets. Afghanistan is ready for it. We have the infrastructure, we have the talent, we have the capacity, and we can help you, and we can save you costs. Because I remember I used to work for a French telecom company 10 years ago. One of the areas I was working out was outsourced to India. I was forced to outsource to India, and I hired about 58 people. The first 3 months, we were paying them about $10 per hour. 3 months later, when I went for a visit, it got tripled on us. So bring your business to us. Bring your business to Afghanistan. You will save money, I guarantee you. By the U.S. businesses investing in Afghanistan, you will be also helping eliminate terrorism. You're going to put a lot of people to work. Unfortunately, today there's quite a few of young people that used to have jobs the past few years ago, or out of jobs, and they need to get back into jobs. They're very talented, very energetic, and hardworking people. Next, please. All right, future opportunities. As it was spoken before, Afghanistan has a very good strategic location to be the IT hub of Asia. By a lot of companies investing here in the US and other parts of the world, you will have, like I said earlier, you can have significant cost savings for your businesses, quick return on investment, economic development. You can reduce poverty in that country, and like I said earlier, elimination of terrorism. Next slide, please. Some challenges. It's not as rosy as we want to make it sound to you, but I want to be very honest. We have we need some changes in the ICT policy that need to be applied as soon as possible. Security does remain a challenge. There are a lot of internet service providers that are working on military bases. They have no licenses, and they also work inside the country. They don't pay for license, they don't pay taxes, and they're taking business away from the licensed ISPs. GSM companies, some of them are using or selling internet services via unlicensed resellers. That needs to be fixed. I hope the government will take a step to do that. Quality of U.S. government contracting as kind of sliding. I hope that will be fixed soon. Then we again absence of U.S. Private sector in there. Taxes and fees are not business friendly, but they're starting to change. The other big challenge we have that we have the ISPs, the GSM companies, and the government all going after the same business. That needs to be fixed as well. Thank you so much. The other slides are some numbers which you already seen. Thank you very much. I'll be available for any questions or discussions later after this. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. I want to thank all of our panelists for making their contributions. You've heard some very, hopefully you think, good insights in terms of the importance across both the civil and commercial components of the sector. We are, of course, facing 2014, the year of looking into the next decade of transformation, and it's the belief, certainly, of all of us up here, and I think many of you out there, that for a stable, positive future for Afghanistan, key sectors such as ICT need to continue to be sustained and grown. Thanks so much, Don.
Thank you, Bob. Robert Kinn, of course, with the U.S. Department of Defense, understands what all these acronyms mean. Acronym is the short letters that represent an agency of government, like you use MCIT for the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. Well, the CIO is the Chief Information Officer, and so his shop is the CIO shop. But all of the other acronyms, these letters that replace agencies, I couldn't tell you what they mean either, so I'm not about to explain it now.